What do you think accounted for their interest in coming into Ghana, especially in your first year?
You went to the Supreme Court to petition against the election. And then there was a live broadcast. The ruling came and it immediately accepted it. I'd like to find out whether you deemed that one at least the threat.
Well, we hear from the Media Foundation of West Africa on their report on this encounter. Also coming up, confusion rocks polling station elections of the governing MPP in the eastern region. We'll bring you details of that happening. And in the central region, an assemblyman in the Commander Edna Eguafo municipality has been arrested for violating a law he helped pass on open defecation. You want to stay with us for details of these stories and many others right here on Newsroom. Thank you for joining us. In our first story, President Akufo-Addo has justified his exoneration of Minister of Trade Alan Kyerematen over the allegations of extortion by Trade Ministry at the recently held Ghana Expatriates Business Awards. When quizzed about how he arrived at that conclusion, even before the 5-member ad hoc committee wraps up its investigations, the president explained he is pleased by the explanation given him by the sector minister.
I was there at the occasion, and nobody had made me aware that there was anything like people buying money to sit next to me or anything. So it came as a surprise to me. And I asked for an explanation from him, and he gave me a full account of the process that had been undertaken, the monies that had been paid, the use of the monies, and I mean, a full accounting. I looked at it, I examined it with others, and was satisfied that it had responded to the allegation that had been made. And I believe the statement he made to me is the very same statement that he made to the committee. And it has been supported by virtually everybody who was involved in the organization of the event. So I believe that I was on firm ground in saying to myself that yes, an allegation has been made, it has been looked into, queries that I put on the matter have been responded to, and I'm satisfied with the quality of the responses that I have got. The fact that there is a public inquiry in itself, to me, does not shake my own conviction that there was nothing untoward had taken place, and that is the reason why I took the position that I did. I took that position before the inquiry was launched.
And following that encounter with the press by President Akufo-Addo, the Media Foundation for West Africa has identified the blueprint and sustainability of Free Senior High School Initiative and the delay in the passage of the Right to Information Bill as some of the key issues that were left out during that media encounter with President Akufo-Addo on Wednesday. The foundation has analyzed the questions asked by the journalists and its relevance.
According to the Media Foundation for West Africa, issues of health, especially the increasing prevalence of HIV infections, recent health challenges in second cycle institutions, and state of national health insurance were also left out. The president's introductory address, in the foundation's opinion, was, however, too long and tended to focus nearly exclusively on the achievements of the government with almost no focus on failures, missed targets, and challenges. The procedure on selecting those to ask questions could have been better coordinated right from the beginning. A total of 20 journalists asked questions on various issues and sectors. These questions were analyzed, and this report presents the MFWA's perspectives on some of the best and worst questions. Analysis of the quality of questions were based on basic principles of good questioning, such as relevance of the question.
Mr. President, what is the status of the Guantanamo Bay detainees who were exported to Ghana in the light of the agreement that the Ghana government had with the United States of America? What is the current status, Mr. President? Thank you very much.
Mr. President, my name is Kemini Amano. I work for GHOne Television. I'd like to know, how many jobs did your administration create, directly, indirectly, permanent or otherwise, over the past year? Now, respectfully, while you're at it, do tell us, how does that measure on unemployment in the country?
2 weeks into January, what is the state of the national ID and the mobile payment interoperability system? Thank you.
While 3 questions were found to be the best, questions about the Supreme Court petition, foreign presidents visiting Ghana were among the worst.
My question is, something unprecedented happened in Ghana here. That is during your first year. That is the coming in of visitors, mostly presidents. Classical example was the Emir of Qatar, President Macron, and all those people coming in. In your view, Mr. President, what do you think accounted for their interest in coming into Ghana, especially in your first year?
In 2012-2013, you and 2 others went to the Supreme Court to petition against the election. And then there was a live broadcast, the ruling came, and it immediately accepted it. I'd like to find out whether you deem that one, at least the 3, the petition, the live broadcast, and then the acceptance, as one of the major hallmarks of the Reform Republic.
And there have been reactions all over on social media. You can tweet at us at GHOne TV with your comments on how the journalists fared. But we have been speaking to some of the journalists who were present about their impressions on the questions asked and their responses.
It's important. The fact that the president comes, people ask him anything, questions not planted or whatever, that's fine. But then that's just the first level. I think the key point is to get some real substance in terms of what has been achieved and to give a clear idea of what the man's priorities are. And on that second level, I'm not too sure if our questions were probing enough collectively, honestly. I don't think so. I think all the questions were very soft and very sort of, I don't know. Easygoing. I mean, they're filled with a lot of personal accolades. You know, you really want to drill down to the real bare bones, and I didn't think collectively we were very good. When I asked the question about job creation, which is a matter that is after the president's own heart, I don't think that the president's response was elaborate enough, especially when 6 months ago he had told us how they were putting in efforts to create some data on unemployment and whatnot. 6 months down the line, we shouldn't be hearing that, you know, you're still putting together data and we should expect it 2 to 3 months later. You know, my question then is, how then do you convince the Ghanaian people that all those good numbers and figures as far as the economic indicators are concerned, all those reliefs you're giving industry is actually yielding something in terms of job creation? I don't think I was convinced enough as far as that question is concerned. We always need to lodge at the back of our minds that such high-profile events are not meant for the president alone. In other words, the spotlight is not on the president alone. The spotlight is also on media practitioners. The president will be judged by the quality of his answers, and otherwise will also be judged by the quality of questions we field as such events.
And we can now speak to the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleiman Abrima, on their report following that encounter by the President Akufo-Addo with the media. Mr. Abrima, thank you very much for joining us on Newsroom. You talk about relevance of questions in the ones you rated as the worst questions. Really, was it about the subject matter, or that there were other pressing issues that needed to be questioned about?
Well, in terms of describing a question as not being good, we generally looked at not just the relevance of the question, but the framing of the question, whether the questioner provided good background, contextualization, whether there was illustration, reference to past data or reference to past reports, and so on and so forth. And in terms of context, for example, the question relating to the 2012 presidential petition, recognizing that this would ordinarily or usually be a meeting of not more than, say, 2 hours or 3 hours, I believe that if you are a journalist, knowing very well that getting the opportunity is a unique opportunity for you to really ask a particular question, you would want to ask something that has currency, that has relevance, that is contextually important within the prevailing situation in the country. But if you go back to, say, 2012 presidential petition, yes, there is an issue in our governance, it's an issue in our democratic dispensation. But given the situation now, the myriad of issues, how relevant is that question?
And is it really about the journalists or those who were identified? Because questions have also been asked about the criteria. Of course, there are others who were there who had some questions that I'm sure you would have found relevant, but they weren't called. So is it really about the journalists or the format of this encounter with the president going forward?
Well, but the challenge is if a question was not asked, or if someone had a question and it was not asked, how can we predict that this other person or that other person would have asked a question that we would have deemed much more relevant? So that is a difficult terrain to try and navigate. And then, of course, people have talked about how the questioners were identified. Then I asked myself, how else would they be identified? People have talked about how press conferences are done at the White House. And perhaps that place, I find it to be worse, where the president himself decides to take a particular question or not take a particular question. And I believe that the suspicion would have even been much more if the same thing were to be done here, where President Akufo-Addo decides who he takes a question from, and so on and so forth. So, yes, it's an issue of the journalists, because those who were there, I believe everyone who got there as a journalist went there with the intention of having the opportunity to ask a question.
Let's now talk about the president. In your report, you mentioned that he was well composed, but his address was rather a self-praising one. Were you really expecting him to talk about his challenges?
Well, as we have indicated, we said that that address, the initial introductory address, nearly exclusively focused on just the positive things. But we do acknowledge, and I believe that later on in the question and answer session, for example, his response to the question from Bernard from CTFM, was an acknowledgement that, yes, they promised that they would do this, but they couldn't do that. And it would have been good if the president had said, well, we've done all these great things, but we also do recognize that there are these challenges, there are these missed targets, and so on and so forth. But if you dedicate almost the whole address to, talking about the achievement, as if there hasn't been any challenges or missed targets, we thought that it wasn't perhaps the right way to go.
There have also been concerns about the time frame. Can we ever have a time, a schedule that everybody will be comfortable with? Because we have the information minister continuously telling the journalists that the president has other engagement.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Brima.
Yes.
Yes.
So, you asked about the time.
Yes.
Yes, I think that yesterday's encounter was about 2 hours. And ordinarily, 2 hours for such an encounter, I think, is enough. But it's about how it is managed. And that is why we have said that the president's introductory remarks was quite too long, because it took almost 40 minutes of the 2 hours. And I think that it could have been done in, say, 15 minutes, given that the purpose of the meeting was to allow journalists to ask questions. So if that had been shortened to, say, 15 minutes, it means that we would have had additional 30 minutes for more journalists to ask questions. Besides, I think if we are confronted with the challenge of time, it is important that journalists would adopt the attitude of going straight to their questions, rather than giving very long, winding background, and sometimes at the end of the day, you don't see the relationship between the question, the ultimate question they ask, and the initial long, winding background that they give. And so it's all about how we manage the time. If people are straight to the question, and the president does a very short introduction, and the time is really managed well, I think 2 hours is really enough.
Thank you very much for making time to speak to us here on Newsroom. Suleiman Abrahima is the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. Now we're moving on to some other stories. It's been a week now since the mayor of Accra, Ni Ajay-Sowa, together with other officials of the AMA, demolished settlements behind the VIP station at Circle as part of decongestion exercise. The situation, however, has not improved, as majority of these illegal settlers are still camping on the demolished site, flouting the directive of the AMA officials.
Exactly a week ago, one could only find debris of demolished structures, but that has changed. Though nearly all the debris has been cleared, the memory of that fateful day still lingers on the minds of many here. Many of these squatters are still here, insisting they have nowhere to go. Some of them have pitched camp with their mattresses recovered after the exercise on the surface they come across, while some have no option than to sleep on the bare floor. Children have been left at the mercy of mosquitoes, while the adults struggle to make ends meet. Many properties have been displaced, and life has come to a complete halt for these squatters.
Ni baby ameko juana meya kakaka na ya mede hwe memma nti omo bubu ha sei no mi wa mo e wo mesika nyina na mede kodi dwa me baaya no mede mo no koto basa baby ni ha me kata korofo be wie ni nyina sisi akro ba mi ko susu alo nka na me ye de mede nua kakaka mede ko echi amede hwe memba no sisi ya bo apata susu na mo abebu nti ha na me da me ni baby ameko
landlord obo kios no ade me 2.1 3 days papa abe bubu ha sei sesi a se me ama me da bro de ba se ntonto hweda ma nyim me sa ho nyina ye me nya na ole fe nko me krom ti sesi a de me nya na ole fe a me de be ko me krom na no kwa da mo ba ho mama ye won se o mo beso mba beso ya se so ha biem enya sa wa o se o hwe e be hwe wa o se prison sesi me nya na ole fe nko me krom me nya dai
mini baby o mini baby anka me o baby ko anka makora da mini baby ko kami wosika kranka badisa kranka kama ko ha mi dai de medi krano e di mame me abonti na mi da ohun se na ntuntun kra awi me na mi da e krano nso keke menum krano nso kra ye me nya nso na mi ma ba ma no se ade a chi se na mi nya nso numu ya.
This will not be the first demolition exercise to be done in this part of the city, but authorities are hoping that it will be the last.
Now, government says it will soon roll out a comprehensive plan to address the country's housing deficit. Housing remains a major challenge in Ghana, with the housing deficit pegged at 1.7 million. The Works and Housing Minister Samuel Atachai, in an interview with GHOne News, noted Ghanaians will soon have some relief.
The major policy change is that we want to affect the pension fund through legislation and ring-fence money specifically for housing financing, which competitive banks will come and use as leverage, and then they pay off the developers when they have finished their work, and then they deal with the off-takers, the people that will do the mortgaging arrangement. That is one significant way which will bring a paradigm shift in the whole of housing supply in the country, and trust that this year this is our major focus.
So you are promising that there's a program that is going to be rolled out by government for this housing deficit to be dealt with?
A very serious and credible program. Now, the world over, there's no way the citizenry of any country will have good houses to live in if there's no credible mortgage arrangement, that gives them the opportunity that with time, if you pay your mortgage installments, you'll come and own a house, probably 15 years. Everywhere in the world, there's no way that you have security of housing unless there's a credible mortgage arrangement. The kind of mortgage arrangement we have in the RENAM is like a commercial kind of security. Why would we say that somebody should pay over and above his income in servicing a mortgage spread? This is the problem we have.
If you just joined us, you're watching GHOne Newsroom on GHOne TV. Here's what's yet to come. Confusion rocks polling station elections of the governing NPP in the Eastern region. We'll go to our reporter and get your updates. And an assemblyman in the Commander Edina Eguafuebre municipality of the Central Region has been arrested for violating a law he helped pass on open defecation. You'd want to stay with us for the details.
G is non-stop music. It's sharing and entertainment without buffering. It's gaming with no lag and movies with full immersion. 4G is business without restrictions. It's also smarter money. It's learning beyond borders, achievement without limits, and health for everyone. It's love, family, joy, and everything else. 4G is life. Get a 4G device today and live on the next level. MTN 4G. Hello, future.
MTN. Everywhere you go.
There is a certain satisfaction that comes from hearing the real story from the horse's own mouth when a story breaks or is developing.
There are many enterprises of life that the Nana Addo government will fail.
This business about fighting corruption, we should move it away from the corridors of parliament and confront the greater matter outside there.
State of Affairs will be bringing you exactly that. We'll go eye to eye, face to face, and head to head with the newsmakers at the heart of a story that is breaking or developing to unravel the intricate and minute details of the issues.
State of Affairs, now showing this and every Tuesday and Thursday at 8:30 p.m. State of Affairs is proudly sponsored by Verna Natural Mineral Water. A lot goes on around us every day. Sometimes traditional news outlets cannot capture it the very second it happens. But you have a phone that has a camera, so you have the power. Give us your account of the most impressing and interesting stories in your community. When it happens and you're there, you report it to 0551 433 055. When you see something, say something. Share it on 055 143 3055. MTN Video Report, Mondays and Thursdays on Newsroom, in association with
MTN, everywhere you go.
Well, life is good, so they say. This is the show that will bring you all that you want to see. Meet the people, see the places, and you know what? Catch the moment. It's only on Reveal.
Putting on your best behavior.
Wow, I just love the pool right here at Red Mango on Reveal.
Plenty. When it's to say how they come, that's far.
exclusives. So relax and have a great time with us. The name is Bolare and this is Revealed.
Revealed with Bolare is proudly brought to you by Dust Capital, Carabao Energy Drink, Legends Group and Unibank.
You're welcome back to Newsroom. Now, the polling station elections of the ruling New Patriotic Party has been marred with confusion in almost all constituencies in the Eastern region. Now, constituency executives, in some cases, and members of parliament have been accused of hijacking the nomination forms under the pretext that it has run short. However, released their forms only to their cronies and fanatics. The situation has triggered protests and agitations, creating misunderstanding across the region. Our correspondent GHOne joins us via telephone with more. GHOne, which constituencies can you talk about specifically, and what is causing this confusion?
Well, for now, I can tell you that in the Eastern region, almost all the constituencies have reported cases of confusion. But basically, today and yesterday at New Dublin South constituency, there was some sort of demonstrations by some disgruntled members or supporters of the opposition, of the ruling New Patriotic Party. Essentially, they are levying allegations against the constituency executives that they are preventing them, those that they perceive to be against them, from getting access to nomination forms that will enable them contest the polling station election. So they are alleging that these executives say that the forms have finished. However, they've issued to their cronies and they are filling the forms in their rooms, essentially to prevent those that they oppose to them from getting access and contest. So that's the more reason why they embarked on demonstration. They converged at the constituency office, but police officers, about 10 to 15 armed police officers were there to ensure that does not turn into something chaotic. So as we speak now, all the challenges that we're recording in the Eastern region from across the constituencies, the election committee headed by Alhaji Omar Bodinga and other committee members, they are holding a crunch meeting this morning to address all the challenges to pave way for the election to commence.
And so that's the committee, the election committee of the NPP in the Eastern region.
Yes, yes. I spoke with Alhaji Omar Bodinga initially, and he is saying that the allegations and confusion that are being reported in the constituencies are essentially due to communication barriers. So they received the petition and the complaints. So the meeting to ensure that the challenges are solved for the elections to be held peacefully in the region.
All right, I'm sure we'll bring our viewers further details later on News Tonight. Thank you very much, GHOne. He joined us from the Eastern region. We understand the election committee of the NPP is in a crunch meeting to address the challenges that have engulfed the polling station elections there. We'll bring you updates as and when we have them. Now, here are our social media handles if you would want to pass a comment on any of the stories we've brought to you so far. Take a look. Now let's head for the courts, where the case involving the former NCA boss returned to the courts today, and the first prosecution witness of the state, Abnasa Fueje, in the case involving former board chairman of the NCA, GHOne Bafo-Boni, so they told the Commercial High Court that the NCA board never accused or discussed or even approved any contracts in any of their meetings, and you know that she's been given her testimony the last time the case was in court. So today is the second day. Wilberforce Osari joins us via telephone with details of what transpired in court. Wilberforce, what can you report?
Well, Madam Abena Akufo-Addo, who is the first prosecution witness, today continued with her examination in chief. Now, in disclosing several things to the court, Madam Akufo-Addo indicated that she, being the head of legal department of the company, sat in all board meetings, being the 35th board meeting through to the 38th. She says that in all those board meetings, never was any contract between IDL and the NCA discussed whatsoever. And so she was surprised that a contract such as has been presented in the court came to bear when police investigators started conducting their investigation. As I speak to you now, Madam Abena has completed her evidence in chief, and defense lawyers, 5 of them, have started cross-examining her. The first to begin the cross-examination is Tadio Sori, who is lawyer for the first accused person, Mr. GHOne Bafo-Boni. Mr. Tadio Sori sought to inquire from the lady whether or not she has an issue, personal issue with Mr. Bafo-Boni, and that is why she has agreed to testify against him. And she indicated that she has no issues with Mr. Bafo-Boni whatsoever. She is in the court to testify because of the position she occupies, and because the documents that are covering the third contract, which has resulted in this case, never came to her attention. The cross-examination, as I speak to you, is currently ongoing.
It's quite an interesting question about the lady's relationship with the former NCA boss, but I'm sure Tadio Sori had his reasons. But thank you very much. Wilberforce Osari joined us from the courts. An assembly member of the Commander Edina Iguafu-Ebre municipality of the Central Region has been arrested this dawn for defecating at the Elmina Beach. Now, this assemblyman, Clarence Joseph of the Sabre Awene electoral area, was among others arrested this dawn by the Assembly's task force for that is enforcing the ban on open defecation. Kwekuba Echamfo is our reporter, and he joined us via telephone. Kwekuba Echamfo. Kweku, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Newsroom.
Good afternoon, Abna.
Quite an interesting happening, looking at this assemblyman who helped in enforcing the ban, finding himself at the other side of that same ban. What exactly can you tell us about this assemblyman?
Abna, to add to what you just said, he was recently nominated by the Assembly even to represent it in the Zoom Lion initiative that was meant to educate assembly members in the coastal belt who mostly experience this open defecation. So it comes as a huge blow to the assembly that such a person who was one way or the other that ambassador for the assembly in that area and in that regard is the very person who is also perpetuating such an act. And they think that is very embarrassing, and already attempts have been made to push the people to one way or the other appeal to the assembly to take him out of the assembly because they think that he will not be a worthy representative of the people. And you know that the area has been battling this open defecation for quite a long time. You know, already some 40 people have been fined by the Elmina Magistrate Court for the same cause. And even one person has had his freedom curtailed as he's serving a 12-month jail term at the Ankafo prison because he was not able to pay the fine of 450 Ghana cedis that was placed on him for engaging in open defecation. So,
so what happens
to the thing that the assembly is trying to fight? But I must say that they are making headway.
Kweku, so what happens to this assemblyman? Will he be fined, or what is the next line of action?
Yes, what the assembly is telling me is that there is no way they are going to shield him. They are going to treat him just like the other 39 who were also arrested and have been fined by the magistrate court. So this afternoon, I'm told that they would really arraign him before court so that he will face prosecution. But beyond that, they are saying that he should not be allowed back to the assembly as an assemblyman, as efforts are being put in place to ensure that he is kicked out of the assembly.
And how are residents reacting to this?
They are very angry because there are some people who think that the assembly member should be the last person to be doing such a thing. But there are also others who think that in as much as the assembly will want to curtail such an act, government should also be moving in to make sure that they have a lot of these toilet facilities. That we have people who are even pushing for free toileting, that is free toilet facility at every place. You will not need to pay a dime in order to access the free toilet facilities there. So they tell me that just as we have free education and people are going to school free, there should be free toileting if the government wants to curtail such a menace so that there will not be any potential disease outbreak.
And that was Kweku Bayechamfor. He reports for GHOne News from the Central Region. Now, imagine your child walking a distance of about 4 miles to school. Well, that's the situation some children at Aprade, Kwamanteng in the Eastern Region go through due to the lack of an established school. Worried parents told GHOne News fatigue sometimes affects the children's concentration level. Kujansa has the rest of the story.
These children walk about 4 miles to school every day. A risky trek for these children, a situation they have to grapple with as they defy the odds to get education. Interestingly, a 3-unit classroom block erected by a benevolent organization in 2011 has become a white elephant, the reason being that it has not been officially commissioned. A completed classroom block sitting in the Aprade Kwamanteng community has been reduced to a decorated doll, while children go through harsh conditions to access education. Some residents have also been sharing how the situation is inconveniencing education of children in the community.
Akoda kitikiti obe 90 baby akoda we be 90 asana obe ko school so wo fasa kwa sukura wo bre na so akoda kiti wa we obe 90 so o si da bia obe tua ti say 7 cedis asana oba be ko school ana 10 cedis asana oba be ko school dako.
If they can help us so that we start the school, because the building has been completed for so many years now, and the children, the young ones, are still in the house, not able to go to the schools which are near.
Henry Agogli, unit committee chairman and opinion leader, has this to say.
After building the school, the DC came here and said, oh, as the school was completed, then he will find a way so that he will open the school. Up to now, the school was built almost about 6 years or something like that. Up to now, it's there. They didn't open it. So if the new MPP government can help us this time and open it for us, I think we will like it.
Efforts made to get MCE for Akuapem North Municipality, Dennis Abuaje, proved futile.
Now, persons living with disability in the Sunyai municipality of the Bunoa-Ahafo region are lamenting unpaid portion of the Dishes Assembly Common Fund. They expressed their displeasure at the first general meeting of the Sunyai branch of the Persons Living with Disability held over the weekend.
Members of the association further indicated the situation is making life unbearable for them, as they often go in for loans to survive. They also bemoan the stigmatization and discrimination still perpetuated against living with disabilities.
First, Nana, I say, Senkaka Krawo, now you the complaints because I said, this kind of mayano, you need any home. Into your way, I guess, system non comayan for Eddie Amayan. but by afinino yente do o ma be twetwe di no e de kode na yente hwe fa ho
ebia na me your baby maybe him say like he want to marry me. The society, they will not accept me. They will say I am a disabled, I can't do this, I can't do that, they will not accept me. Maybe the man too he loves to marry me. And the landlord, few for so we will all behind the they all say won't mean you say and just baby.
Raphael Bocho Nkegbe, a member of the association and para-Olympian, called on the government to support the team to prepare adequately towards the Commonwealth Games in Australia.
Locally, preparation haven't started yet because the ministries and the sports authority have sent a lot in terms of our preparation. The preparation is in two phases. They said we're having local preparation, then we can go international to go and have 1 month preparation before moving to the Commonwealth game, who will start from 4th to 15th April. So far, as individual athletes, I'm preparing and being one of the athletes that has qualified. This is my second time going to the Commonwealth game, and I'm having a high hope.
It's time for us to bring you some business news, and here the Ghana Standards Authority has called on the Ministry of Trade with immediate effect to enforce the law on second-hand handkerchiefs, panties, duvet and mattresses. According to the authority, the use of these items are unhygienic and could pose a health hazard to individuals.
In Ghana, it is called fos.
In Kenya, it's mitumba. In Rwanda, it's chagwa. And in eastern Zambia, it's called salaula. Most African languages have a word used to describe them. Some second-hand wares that start life wrapped across the bodies of well-meaning Westerners end up for sale at open market in African countries like Ghana. The United Nations has estimated that 80% of Africans wear second-hand clothes, while Oxfam, a charitable organization, says about 70% of clothes donated globally end up in Africa. These unwanted wares from Europe seem to be in high demand here in Ghana, as there are over 200 traders who mount stands or tables at the Kantamatu market every day. Among those traders are those who retail used underwears and other personal effects in spite of their ban. Low purchasing power forces many people in Ghana to lean towards more affordable used clothes. Naturally, high demand incentivizes traders who edge a living out of this used clothing.
Second hand, me fan say we say a second hand. We cramp ya tonwa wo ha 3 cedis. And na dey brand new no so no. E wo ha 6 cedis. Etinye ni panyina na e den. Omo benya sa 6 cedis no. No ma kwa akoton. We say na ye ton no 3 cedis ne 4 cedis no. E wo mu a cramp na etimi boni don komi wo a 1 cedi.
Now, officials of government and ExxonMobil are today signing a petroleum agreement on some exploration activities to be carried out on Ghana's Cape 3 points. Now, joining me via telephone is Executive Director of the Kumasi Institute of Technology, Energy and Environment, Ishmael Ejakumhene, for a conversation on this whole transaction. Ishmael, thank you for joining us on GHOne TV. Your initial comments on this deal?
Well, let me say good afternoon to your listeners. Obviously, if you are an emerging oil economy and you have a big player like ExxonMobil coming into your space, in principle, it should be good news. They would send some signal to the whole world that Ghana is now a very busy place, and in that sense, it's good news.
But there have been concerns about the processes that were used to arrive on ExxonMobil, the fact that it wasn't open to public tender. Are you one of those people who are against this, or it doesn't really matter if they can do the work, then we should go ahead?
No, I think, you see, there's a reason why in the Petroleum Exploration and Production Bill, civil society fought for the introduction of competitive tendering. So there is a basis for that. We seriously believe that anything that you open up to competition, you are almost likely going to end up with the best value. So that ought to have been the approach. But I'm sure you must have read the reasons advanced by the ministry as to why they are entering into direct negotiations. The fact that already the site had been relinquished by two companies, relatively small companies like Lukoil and also Banco. They actually had those blocks and they have relinquished it because of the debt, because of perhaps their inability to have the right technology. And I heard the ministry saying, I read that ExxonMobil should have the capacity to do exploration in those areas. If that is enough basis and no other company apart from ExxonMobil could do that, then there is a basis for these direct negotiations. But as I said, I believe the petroleum production exploration bill said use this as an exception rather than the rule. So unless, of course, there's no other player in the industry who will be able to do what ExxonMobil is being brought in to do, then we should have used a competitive tendering process. But as the ministry took pains to explain to all of us why they are going for this route. So in that sense, I would defer to what they are saying and say that probably they couldn't have gotten anybody to do that. But the principle of competitive bidding, I think we should always try to stick to that, and we shouldn't be using those direct negotiations to the extent that is possible. That should be avoided.
And Ishmael, from where you sit, the arguments the ministry is putting forward for ExxonMobil, do you think they have the required capacity to undertake this exploration at the Cape 3 points?
I have no doubt. I have no doubt that ExxonMobil is more than qualified. They have done explorations in deep water areas, similar to where this block is, the tunnel, deep water tunnel block is. So yes, there is no doubt. But let's just flip the question and ask that whether they are the only ones who will be able to do it, and that I'm not sure they are the only ones. So unless there were some other compelling reasons, we should have stuck to what the petroleum production exploration. I mean, the default is for us to open it to competitive bidding. But I can also understand why the government probably wouldn't want to be playing with any new companies, especially given the fact that two companies had already relinquished the site, which means they got the block and they couldn't find anything. In fact, they couldn't meet their minimum obligation, so the block have been taken away from them. So I believe they want to go in for a tried and tested company who will come in. But don't let us even fight at this stage. It's just
So we'll have to wait and see their work.
There's no guarantee that they're going to make any discussion. So,
okay. Ishmael, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Ishmael Ejikumhene. And he is Executive Director of the Kumasi Institute of Technology, Energy and Environment. And we wait to see the work to be executed by ExxonMobil. Let's move on. The various labor unions have bemoaned government's delay in the formation of a board at the National Labour Commission to adjudicate labor issues in the country. The latest to speak on the issue is the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Karewe, told GHOne News he told GHOne Business the situation has created a backlog of cases which needed the urgent attention of the National Labour Commission.
Edward Karewe, who was reacting to the president's silence on the matter as he met with the media as part of assessment of the 1 year in office, said even though the unions have sent their list of commissions, the president is yet to give his approval for them to commence their duties. He noted the situation has a tendency to affect dispute resolution on the job market.
the determination of the board members have to come from the three stakeholders, major ones, government, employers, and then labor or organized labor. Much has gone into it, and it's now left with the president to probably appoint them and then commission them to do their work.
The mandate of the existing commission expired at the latter part of 2017, hence the absence of the commissioners to play the role of mediators and arbitrators at the NLC. He called for the expansion of their operations.
It's a serious challenge, seriously, and we think that not only about the board, but the commission needs a lot of resources. And we think that this year and going forward, more offices should be opened for in the regions, Kumasi, Tamale, and so on, so that those far from Accra could access this type of important services.
And that's all for the business segment. We get to bring you international news now.
Zimbabwe will in 5 months hold election. President Emerson Mnangagwa says it will be the first vote since independence in 1987. Robert Mugabe became president and was forced to resign as president last November after a military takeover. According to the constitution, Zimbabwe should hold elections between 22nd July and 22nd August, but parliament can elect to dissolve itself, triggering an early vote. President Mnangagwa, who had served as Mr. Mugabe's deputy, replaced the long-time leader as head of the governing ZANU-PF. Since independence, Zimbabwean elections have been marred by vote rigging, intimidation and violent suppression of the opposition. The U.S. President Donald Trump's view on Mexico border wall have evolved, says his chief of staff, John Kelly. Speaking to Fox News, Mr. Kelly also did not deny reports that he had described the president as uninformed when he made campaign promises about a wall. The comments were overheard during an immigration meeting on Wednesday, according to U.S. media. A row on immigration between lawmakers and the White House is currently risking a federal government shutdown.
Next is sports. Now, Accra Hatavok booked a place in the finals to the GHOne tournament after beating Kotoko 4-2 on penalties at the Babayara Sports Stadium on Wednesday. Both teams could not find a breakthrough in regulation time, despite creating several chances in entertaining goalless draw. Christopher Bonney stepped up first for Accra-based club Hatavok in the shootout and converted his kick expertly. Jackson Owusu missed the first kick for Kotoko to hand Hearts the advantage. Now, Francis Morton and Baba Mahama both scored the second kicks for Hearts and Kotoko respectively to bring the score at 2-1. The local organizing committee of the 2018 Women Africa Cup of Nations is upbeat about having all infrastructural works completed by July ahead of the tournament in November. The Accra Sports Stadium is expected to be the main venue for the tournament. However, the edifice is in deplorable condition and is set for refurbishment sometime soon. The Cape Coast Stadium will be the second venue, while the Babayara and Sekondi Stadia will serve as an alternative for the competition. And finally, Everton have completed the signing of Theo Walcott from Arsenal in a deal worth more than £20 million on a 3.5-year contract. Sam's second signing of the January transfer window, following the £27 million paid for the striker. The move brings an end to Walcott's 12-year stay at Arsenal. Let's now bring you some entertainment news.
Mr. President, are you interested in 2014 World Cup Commission of Inquiry report?
To be honest, I've forgotten about the 2014 World Cup.
Well, at 6:30, the news team will be back with news tonight. But thank you very much. This is where we draw the curtain on Newsroom today. My name is Habna Osunyamiche.
I hope you're enjoying it.
Yes, I am.
What's wrong?
A burning sensation in my stomach.
What? And I made sure I didn't put any pepper in it. I know you don't like a lot of pepper. Sorry. Do you feel better? What is it? What is it? My prince, what's wrong?
What is it, my prince?
What is it?
What is it? What? Oh no!
What is it? What is wrong?
What's wrong with you?
What happened?
What did you put in the soup?
I didn't
What did you put in the soup?
I didn't put anything. I didn't put anything.
No! My prince!
My prince!
No!
My prince!
What have you done?
No!
What have you done?
I didn't do anything! I didn't do anything! I just...
My prince!
Please.
No!
But I didn't put anything in the food now. I didn't put anything. What have you done? My prince,
what have you done?
Please don't do this to me, please, my prince. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me, my prince, please.
What have you done?